Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Ways and Means. So we're going to hear from two departments, public safety and then law enforcement. So we'll begin with public safety. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Dela Cruz, Chair Wakai, Vice Chairs Moriwaki and Elefante, and members of both committees. I'm Tommy Johnson, the Director of the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation. Effective 1 January, we were redesignated from public safety to the DCR. In the interest of brevity and because we're falling behind, I would just summarize my testimony that you have in front of you, and then we can get into the tables if you like. So for real quickly, for short-term goals, for the new DCR, we want to reduce our overcrowding and improve working conditions and living conditions for the inmates, fill our vacancies and invest in the next generation of correctional leaders, expansion of our mental health services, which is reflected in the budget I'll go over later, and upgrade our correctional master plan, which hasn't been updated since 2003. For our long-term plans and goals, we plan to relocate the Hawai'i Community Correctional Center. We want to plan to build a jail in West Oahu, plan to relocate the Maui Community Correctional Center, plan to relocate the HCCC, Hawai'i Community Correctional Center, plan to bring back our inmates from the mainland as much as possible, and significant activities and challenges that we faced over the last few years, of course, was a COVID-19 pandemic, short-term staffing for correctional officers, jail overcrowding and deteriorating facilities, as you know. The Oahu Community Correctional Center replacement, we're in the planning and design phase, and better population management of those in our custody and care. With respect to federal funds, we received $55,539,109.43 in federal ARPA funds. As of November 2023, we expended $39.5 million, so we have about $16 million left and accounted for. We will spend that money down as well for various activities. In our budget, supplemental budget for 2024-25, we're requesting $434,864, which we'll discuss at table 6. Other requests are requests for various facilities programs for increased electricity and water and sewer costs. For fiscal year 2024-25, we're also our position count will be 2,615.6, and that include in addition to that, we have 43 temporary positions. Our budget is $318,943 and $318,943,387. That's all means of financing. With that said, I'm ready to get into the tables.
Yeah, we can just go over either the decisions on table 4 that the governor approved, okay, or table 6.
Okay, so for table 4, did you have specific questions? Do you want to go line by line?
Line by line.
Okay. For as you can see, we had a number of priorities, 15 priorities. Our priorities, our number 1 priority was the first 4 lines you see there for PSD 900, PSD 402, 404, 407, and 409. For a total of $82,248 for fiscal year 25, and a total of 8 positions. That was our priority 1. Priority 2 was the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That was various programs, but it was program 808, 402, 403, 404, 405, 406, 407, and 409.
So just trade-offs.
Yes, everything was trade-offs.
Okay.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go to table 5 or 6?
No, and then you had 1, 3, yeah, that got approved.
Yes.
The WCF. Oh, that's for electricity.
That was for the, yeah. That was for the, we had we experienced an increase in our electricity costs at a number of facilities, water and sewer, and we will be coming in next year because I believe I was taking the Board of Water Supply indicated they will be raising rates 40 to 50% in the next 5 years. So we're going to need funds to offset that in future years coming.
Yeah. What about, well, any questions on table 4 that I had? I noticed on table 7, restrictions, you didn't, describe any of the impacts.
We were able to, if I'm not mistaken, we were able to absorb the restrictions with little impact to our operations.
Oh, okay. And then the vacancies.
Table 11.
Table 11.
Okay.
Page.
For us, it's page 27.
So let me explain what we're doing to fill the vacancies, because I think two of the 854, well, first the 928.25 vacancies, of those 74 actually belong to the DLE, Department of Law Enforcement.
Oh,
And
I see.
256.5 of those vacancies are all new positions that we're getting for Women's Community Correctional Center and for Hawai'i Community Correctional Center, because of the new dormitory, the new administration building, new visitation, and a new dormitory going up at WCCC. Okay. So with respect to the vacancies, I can explain what we're doing to fill the vacancies if you have a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in 2023, we participated in 16 job fairs. We went to BYU, Chaminade, UH, and HPU. We started working with the military transition centers for those coming out. We advertised on the bus. We also advertised on Wiki, where we would normally advertise for nurses. We updated our criteria for our 89-day hire, and that's now on our website where people can apply for 89-day hire. At our job fairs, we are now able to hire on the spot for emergency hires, which we weren't able to do before. We held 4 training classes last year. This coming year, we're going to hold 6 BCRC, Basic Corrections Officer Training classes. The class beginning on January 22nd, we have 35 applicants. For the class beginning on March 18th, we have 38 applicants. We're not sure yet for the future classes how many applicants we're going to have. We also plan to advertise radio and TV, and we're going to advertise also on the rail system. And in addition to that, we will be advertising in movie theaters to try to. So part of the problem we have is space that corrections isn't sexy. People don't want to work in correctional facilities, so we have to try to make it as attractive as possible. So one of the things we're also doing is on our website, we're going to be touting the benefits of state employment. What people don't realize is the state of Hawaii has the best benefit package in the nation for civil service employees. And so we're going to tout that on our website as well. I also did provide the director of DHERD with an outline for 3 different initiatives for corrections officers. One would be to look at a hiring bonus for corrections officers. They would receive half of the bonus within 30 days after completion of training and reporting to their facility, and the other half once they completed their initial probationary period. If they were unable to do that, we would claw that back in a retroactive manner. I also propose that we look at returning step movements to the corrections officers, which was taken away in 99. In addition to that, I looked at longevity pay. And what I mean is someone who has 10, 15, 20, 25 years with the state should receive some type of an incentive to stay. However, that incentive would be tied to coming to work at least 80% of the time and also not having any disciplinary action within the previous 2 years. So those are outlines that I provided to DHERD to make corrections a little bit more attractive, but also to get people to come to work, because that is our main issue. Another thing that hurts us with our vacancies is that we have 67 people on total temporary disability. We have 21 on light duty. We have 14 on military leave. But here's the killer. We have about 501 staff total on intermittent FMLA absences, Family Medical Leave Act. And so if a corrections officer or a staff says, if we say, well, we need you to stay for overtime, they say, nope, I have FMLA, you can't keep me, then we have to let them go, even if letting that person go poses a danger or a risk to the staff or the inmates because they're understaffed. We just had meetings with the USDOL, and that was their position, that irrespective of your issues with staffing, you're not allowed to keep people back, hold them back. for FMLA. So we want to try to work with DHERD. I met with the union, UPW, twice with all of their chief stewards to try to address this issue. And I asked Kulani, would they be willing, Kulani Warner is the head of UPW, would they be willing to go to job fairs with us? And how can they help us get their members and our employees to come to work?
Okay, so that's probably affecting table 13 then, the overtime summary.
Yes, and as you can see on table 13, you can see the spike in overtime in 2019 when the pandemic hit. It went up a little bit 2020 and 21. Unfortunately, we had two different things hit. We had a silver tsunami with a lot of people retiring, and we had COVID hit, so we had a lot of people out. So you see the spike, it went up to from 13 to 18 million, 19 up to 22. But as you see in fiscal year 2023, it's starting to taper back down. It's about 2.3 million down from the year before. So we hope that that trend continues as we fill the positions.
Looking at the following year, 2025, it goes down to 4.9 million in expected overtime costs from 20 million. What magical thing happens in 2025 where you cut it by 75%?
I'll have our business management officer explain the rationale.
Good afternoon, Senator Tessie Fernandez, Business Management Officer. What is in fiscal year 2025 is actually the budgeted overtime amount. Okay, it is not actual, or it is not a projected number. It is what is in our base budget.
Senator Kim.
Yeah, I wanted to look at your fill dates. How realistic is your fill dates? So a lot of your fill dates are February, March, April, and some of these positions have been vacant for several years. And I recall some of them were on your list last time, which you folks had these ambitious fill dates, and you didn't fill it yet. So how do you decide? You guys just go randomly and put what you think you're going to fill with?
No, it's not randomly. We look to see the number of classes. So if you look, I don't have the class information, I apologize, but we started increasing number of basic correction officers the classes that we're having. Last year we had 4 classes. This year we plan to have 6 to keep it with attrition. So what we should be doing is going back and filling those positions that have been vacant the longest when we go through to do the recruitment.
Give us more realistic fill days. Like you have this farm manager one, it was vacant since 2019. And last year, I think you guys said you were going to fill it by a certain date, and you're telling me you're going to fill it by February 1. You have somebody already?
I'll have to double check, but if we have that date there when we're in active recruitment, and we may have already made an offer, but I can get back to you, Senator.
Okay, well, you have many like that.
Mhm.
You know, you have an account clerk that who won. They're ready to go.
If you wish, I can go back and have personnel give us a list for those fill dates, and tell you if we have candidates, if we have interview scheduled, if we all actually made an offer.
So I think you guys in the future, you need to give us more realistic dates, because what the departments are doing is putting a fill date so we don't cut your position. We think it's already been offered or it's being processed, when in actuality it's not, because next year you're giving me the same vacant positions.
I think what we can do, Senator, is go back and look and give the panel more information. But in addition, if we list a position one year that we say we're going to fill it and we don't, then we should provide an explanation the following year why we didn't fill it. I agree.
Senator Moro.
So a lot of your vacancies, like 30%, I would think, are in ACOs, and that's where you have frontline workers. So have you, and you said you're working with HRD, but have you looked at why, or even on the ACOs who have exited, do you have exit interviews to see how can you not only recruit, but retain your workers if in fact nobody wants to work there? What are you doing for the environment?
We're working with the Oversight Commission. We allowed them to send a survey out to all staff, including corrections officers, to find out that very same thing. Like, why is it you're not coming to work? What can we do as the employer to improve the working conditions? What is it we can do to have you stay? But I can tell you this, corrections is hard on the body. So most people who do make it to retirement, they retire right at 30 years.
So have you done any exit interviews so that you can see, at least to get some feedback for those who are in the position, what are some of the kinds of things that you could do to change the work environment so that you can recruit and retain?
To be honest, I don't think we have done that, but I'll talk to the facilities and our human resources. And we should be doing something like that because that'll give us a better idea to gauge why are people leaving and what can we do to retain them. But I think even before the exit interview, when we talk to them about performance evaluations and throughout the year, I think we can do a better job of communicating with them and figuring out where the problem areas are and try to be more proactive and address them up front.
So just one more question on, in terms of what you're actually doing in terms of training. So you say that you recruit, but then you train. So how long is that training period? And
Right now, the academy, well, the whole process is about 6 months. So we want to try to cut that down. Right now, the academy is 11 weeks long. My proposal to our training services division to cut it to 8 weeks long with 3 weeks of OJT in the facilities as part of their initial probationary period to get them in the facilities more. Another thing we're doing is, particularly with neighbor islands, if we have enough to hold a small academy on the neighbor islands, I think the break even was 6 candidates. If we're able to get 6 candidates on the neighbor islands, and we will hold the academy there on the neighbor island, and I think we'll get more people from the neighbor islands to commit. The reason why some say that they don't want to commit is because they have small children. They don't want to leave their children and stay here in a hotel for 11 weeks. So we looked at that. And so if it's feasible, again, if it's 6 or more, then the cost benefit analysis says we can do it and save money. So we are thinking outside the box in a number of areas. It's just not fast enough, I understand.
thank you.
Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Chair. Director, weren't you exploring with the union about the work time or like a pilot program on the work hours?
Yes, we were working with UPW. They were looking at a 12-hour workday, a 10 to 12-hour workday. So because we weren't getting corrections officers to come to work with enough consistency to do a study to come up with empirical data, I offered to do it with the cooks because they have similar schedules at a smaller facility. I still haven't heard back from UPW yet about that, but we are willing to explore that. One of the concerns I have with the corrections officers, if we do go to a 12-hour schedule and you keep somebody, you automatically, that person is on for 24 and you have to give them the next day off, no matter what. So I wanted to start with the cooks to see if it works. And if it works, then we can do a pilot project at a facility, a smaller facility for the corrections officers like Kulani or Waiava, or even, those would be the two. Those are the 2 smallest facilities we have.
Okay, and then the other follow-up I have is in your CIP requests, you have 45 million for Halava for the consolidation of a healthcare facility. Why so much for a consolidation at that facility?
Well, right now, Halava is our main prison. And right now, the infirmary is hopefully inadequate for the type of inmates we have and the medical issues they have. This would also allow us to take detainees and inmates from other facilities who need a higher level of care and place them there where they can get the care and not send them out for specialty care, which is more expensive in the long run. So it's actually long overdue. We had requested this money a few years ago and last year. And I think originally when we requested it, it was only $30 million, but the cost escalation go up.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
I have a question about how does your department interface with that oversight commission in terms of budget? Do you show Kristen your numbers and get her approval, or does she have any input into how you calculate your personnel resources and your facility resources?
No, we work with the commission, and the commission is free to look at the budget. It's public record. But they don't have oversight authority to say, well, Tommy, you need to spend money for this or ask money for this or not this. They make recommendations to us. So far, the commission has made 55 recommendations to us from their visits throughout the different facilities. I think we've instituted close to 35, 36 of those. Some of those are items that require funding, and we're coming in and asking for the money for some of that funding. The commission, and last time I spoke with Christian Johnson, the commission will make recommendations in their testimony to the legislature that may or may not affect public safety.
Senator Favela.
Going back to the hiring of the ACOs, and I heard you saying that some of them stay 25 years up to 30 years. Some of the ACOs that I talked about, if they had gotten the back pay probably 10 or maybe more years on what they've been fighting for with UPW. And then also their COVID pay. A lot of them would leave. I mean, they would retire. And then you talked about what Senator Moriwaki said about you guys having one interview when the guys leave. Is that in place or just hearsay? Do you guys have a policy or somewhere in there that you guys actually gonna do this when anybody exit now going forward?
I don't believe that, I indicated, I don't believe that they're doing exit interviews now, but it is a good idea. But not only should we do exit interviews, we should talk to the employees throughout their tenure with us to figure out what can we do better.
Right?
So one of the things I will do is I will go back and talk to our personnel officer and make sure that we're instituting exit interviews. We can't make them participate, but we can at least offer that opportunity if someone provide feedback to us.
And then just another, so just going forward, I had made a health and welfare check over there, and I know you guys was all into some kind of training. Not everybody was at the facility at OCCC. I wanted to see one of the modules or one of those gang facilities, but because never have escort and the ACO was by himself in a facility. Can you elaborate on how dangerous that is for my colleagues to understand a facility that they're in that is locked and they have both sides have inmates, shower in the middle, security table in the middle, and you have one guard.
Okay, so depending on the classification level, it's either one officer to 48 or one officer to 60 when it comes to inmates. So the higher the classification level, then the lower the number, the ratio should be 1 to 48. If staff do not show up for work and we call people in and they either can't come in or they don't answer the phone, then we get a situation where you have one person maybe in a module with 120 AC with 120 inmates, and that's unacceptable. But since we can't hold them according to federal law for the FMLA, we have to let those people go. We have no choice but to shut all programs down, shut down all non-essential posts, all essential, non-essential posts, and shift those people over where we need them. And sometimes you might have one person in a module with 120 folks, and that is not safe, but we're required to man the post. And so at a minimum, we have is one person there. Ideally, what you would have is two ACOs and a sergeant.
You talked about that you guys are gonna looking at the facility on the west side, so you guys not considering the one at the quarantine area?
No, when I said west side, we were looking at the west side on the Big Island.
Okay.
For a Kona jail, because the problem we have on the Big Island is right now about 34% to 68% of the 300 plus detainees and inmates we have at ACCC are from Kona. If we're able to put a jail in Kona, people can maintain connectivity with the families. They don't have to drive. A lot of people don't have a car or can spend the money for gas to drive 2.5 to 3 hours both ways. So we think, and it'd be closer to the courthouse, so we would cut down on wear and tear on the vehicles, keep some connectivity, and we think it's more secure to have a smaller jail in the community where those folks are from. With the quarantine site, that is the site for the new OCCC. But the Department of Agriculture does have to move part of the quarantine facility for us to get the heavy equipment in, but we're not there yet, to be honest with you. We're still doing the planning and design, and animal quarantine has to move some of its operations before we can start construction.
So what is the minimum age to be one adult correction?
It is 21 years
21.
old.
Reason why I bring this up is because the hiring process takes sometimes more than it should.
Correct.
And by the time you guys get the candidates and the candidates leave for offers for other jobs, there's any way of trying to minimize the recruiting in getting somebody that's 19 or 20 to apply, and because the qualifications and for the background check and everything that you just said you guys are gonna hire on the spot for emergency hires. And right now, the problem that you guys hiring emergency hires is that they don't pass background check. So a lot of, if you hire 10, most of them don't pass background check and you only end up with 1 out of the 10. So how can we increase that going forward with the process of not just emergency hire, but on the long term, when you guys hire regular people moving forward? Because if I'm 20 and I just came 20, Sorry. And I wanted to be an adult correction officer, and I apply, and I know the process would take long. I have something to look forward to in turning 21 and moving into that field, because that's, right now, that's the thing that we gotta try and hook in, is the younger generation.
I think we have two challenges with that. One, Senator, I want to remove all artificial barriers to both employment and moving inmates sequentially through the criminal justice system. And so I'll go into the detail about the inmates soon, but I have no qualms with working with DHERD to consider lowering the age to 18. Part of the problem may be is that as a former 18-year-old male, I was not the most mature person on the block. And so I don't necessarily know if I wanted to give an 18-year-old person a gun. But that being said, I did join the military when I was young, and it did teach me responsibility.
That's why I said 20.
Right.
Yeah, but are there other positions that you could hire them at 18, 19, 20 so that when they become 21, they already are familiar, some administrative position or something more preliminary?
Right. So 21 is for ACOs only. We can hire at 18 for our administrative support staff. But again, I have no qualms with contacting the director DHERD to see what can be done. And maybe we can have two different classes of
career
corrections
ladder.
officers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One where you're 18 to 21, you're not in a post where you have a weapon,
Yeah.
but you are learning to
Yeah.
be a corrections officer.
Yeah.
So I will make that commitment to the panel,
Yeah.
to the
Maybe
committees.
Senator Gibbs.
3 questions. What's the follow-up? You folks been looking at what are some of the concessions that were given in collective bargaining that have made it more difficult for you to be able to run the facility in a more safe manner? Event like the fact that people can call in sick up to like 2 o'clock the same day. You don't even know they're going to be there for the shift that started already. There's a lot of areas that concessions were made that perhaps if we're looking at it now, part-time employees. I know the unions have fought that for a long time, but these are times when we need to relook at some of those things, right?
I haven't looked at part-time employee, Senator, but we have looked at the MOAs and MOUs that we have. We have 110 MOAs and MOUs with UPW and HEA combined. 87 of them are with UPW. We have notified UPW through DHERD that we will not be continuing the vast majority of them. And some of them was the one where they call in sick up to 2 hours before. Another one was where they can refuse to temporarily be assigned up. Because the problem we have is that if they keep refusing to be temporarily assigned up, and the way the promotion system works now up to lieutenant is the most senior person gets the job. So we notified the union that we will be changing the promotion system too, because I don't believe just because you've been around the longest that you should get the job. It should be the person who gets the higher score on an interview, an actual in-person interview.
Okay, so you folks are looking at that.
Yes, we are. We've already notified them about the
bargaining
MOUs.
team.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's good to know.
Some of those, but so we're clear, some of those are settlements that the DHERD director will have to make a call on that affects other jurisdictions other than PS2.
Can you folks,
DCR.
can you folks give us an update on how all of those negotiations are going? Because we don't hear anything about it, so we have no clue.
Yes.
Okay, second question. Restorative Circle Program. That state funding was denied, and that helps to transition inmates back into the community. Is that something that you folks are looking to pursue, or it didn't work, or what?
Yes, so originally we received $200,000 appropriation. There was a 10% restriction that made it 180,000. We went out to bid the first time. Lauren Walker, Friends of Hawaii Criminal Justice, whatever the organization is, she put in a bid. The bid was not accepted because each circle for 3 hours cost $4,500. I thought $1,500 an hour was too expensive, so we asked for a breakdown of what the cost was. Instead of providing a breakdown, she provided us information from 2 restorative circle organizations on the mainland who simply said that they charge more, so $4,500 is cheap. So, we asked her again for clarifying information.
We cannot do this program in-house?
We don't have the staffing. We'd have to.
Yeah, you don't have to hire, but
But-
would that be cheaper to do that?
No, it would be more expensive in the long run because when you hire, you have to also account the 67% fringe
Right.
or retirement. But anyway, so we went out to bid the second time, and then WorkNet's Hawaii submitted a bid. In the RFP, we typically said you could not subcontract. Because he indicated, Chaz Williams, in his bid that he was going to subcontract to Lauren Walker, then the bid wasn't accepted. So we now went to West Oahu, and are completing an MOU with them, and they will provide the restorative circles through Ho'oponopono in our facilities for the 180,000. And we think that's probably the better fit, to be honest.
So that would be starting.
That's moving forward. We're finalizing the MOA. It's with UH now, finalize the budget. Once they approve the budget, they'll get it to us. We'll sign off on it. So we will hope, I wanted to start, be honest with you, before the beginning of the legislative session, but I hope to have it done before the end of January. And if you want, once the MOU is done, we can send that to the chairs.
Could you please?
Yes, ma'am.
And finally, if I may bring this up, the fentanyl issue that was in the news about the inmate who wasn't searched or something, and he brought it into the prison and somebody died. Can you?
Well, I can only give you what I know, because this may be a litigation down the line. So I can tell you this, is that the inmates came in through the police department. When they came in through the police department, they were taken to the hospital and x-rayed. Unfortunately, whatever process used, it didn't detect everything. So some of let me back up. So they came into the police department. Once we detected the drugs, that it was in the facility, we took them to the hospital. The hospital was supposed to conduct the x-rays. They conducted x-rays. They brought the person back to the facility. Unfortunately, they didn't detect it. So the one inmate still had some of it in his stomach and a condom. He got sick. We ended up taking him back to the hospital that night. This was the day after the incident occurred. So initially when they came in, we don't have the ability to x-ray and scan them to detect if they have things hidden away in their body cavity or swallowed it. We can only have them do the squat and cough. If we suspect that they have keistered or inserted something in their rectum or vagina, we can put them in a dry cell for a certain amount of time to see if it passes, see if it comes out. If they swallowed it, then it's more dangerous for them. This is what happened with the inmate. We had to take him back to the hospital because he was exhibiting signs of being sick. When we took him back, they were able to get him to throw up the last condom, if you will, that was full of drugs.
So the x-ray is supposed to note that though?
The x-rays at the hospital should have noted it, but I don't know what part of the body they x-rayed for that person. And so from our standpoint, we would at some point like to have x-ray machines in our facilities with the ability to do those type of x-rays. But to be honest with you, it would be cost prohibitive at the smaller facilities. I think that there should be, what I explained to the acting warden at the time was, I think there were a couple of breakdowns. One, I believe that the cell block should have been searched at the courthouse before they came. When they came to us after the first incident, then we discovered a white powdery substance in the van. The van was supposed to be searched before every transport and immediately after the transport. And then once the inmates went to the hospital, then they should have made sure the hospital did a thorough x-ray of the body, including the anal and stomach cavities, before they bring them back into the
So
facility.
whose job is it to make sure that these things are done thoroughly?
It is the doctors at the hospital, the medical staff at the
Yeah,
hospital.
but somebody's got to oversee. You ask the question, did you do this? Did you do that? Is that your folks' role?
Well, our medical should have informed the hospital what the issue was, and it's up to the attending physician then to order the appropriate tests, which is the x-rays.
And it wasn't.
It didn't appear that way, no.
So is there some kind of reprimand or some kind of,
Well, I can't reprimand the civilian doctor
no,
in the emergency room.
but your people who should have been giving the.
Our staff notified the medical staff that what the issue was, and that and if I'm not mistaken, that we recommended what the hospital does.
So did they follow up to make sure it was done?
Well, they did do the x-ray. Yes,
Yeah,
they did.
to follow up to see that the right x-rays were done.
Well, I
You're
think
not
there-
just gonna end up in court.
No, I understand, but I think the right x-ray was done. I don't think the x-ray was thorough enough, though. I mean, I think that's what it came down to. It
Yeah,
was human error.
But then your people should have looked at it and said, I don't think it's this thorough enough. right?
Yeah, but I don't think, I gotta check, but Senator, I do not believe that the x-rays came back with the body.
When did it come back?
The x-rays don't come back until after the body comes back. So I have to check and see if the x-rays came back. And even if they did, we don't have a radiologist to read them.
Thank you.
Secretary Decoy.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. So I know that your goal is to try and bring back some of the inmates from out of state. Do you have a means of does that mean that we have to build more facilities?
Well, if we want to bring back all of the convicted felons, just under 900, we will have to build a new prison. We just don't have the space for them. But what I have done is I've ordered that no nonviolent Class C felon be transferred to the mainland. So as a result of that, we've got the numbers down from about a little over 1,000 to just under 900. What we're also looking at is we hired Professor Janet Davison from Chaminade University to take a look at our classification system to see if we're overclassifying people. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. If someone does a certain misconduct, they might spend 18 months at the next higher classification level, but everyone's going to have hiccups. So why 18 months? Seems arbitrary. So why not base it on behavior, and so make it incident and behavior driven and not just time driven, so that after the person's been reclassified for 6 months to 8 months, you review them. And then if they follow the rules, then you look at reclassifying them back down. So that's some of the artificial barriers I mentioned earlier. Another artificial barrier is this. If you commit a walk away from a state prison, that's an escape 2. That's a 5-year sentence if you're convicted. The policy says that you spend 7 years at medium. Well, you don't give the person any light at the end of the tunnel. So there's a lot of artificial barriers I think we put up, which I think we need to take a look at and remove all these artificial barriers. We hold inmates accountable, and when they have a mistake, we should address that issue, hold them accountable, but as soon as possible, move them back down the chain back to the lowest level of classification needed to maintain safety and security, not put them for 18 months back at the lava because they did some small thing.
So does the individual inmate have the option to say, no, I don't like come back, or I'd rather stay out of state, or you guys just take a look at how the inmate, I guess the crime that they did and the amount of whether or not programs they have will help with back into society.
Well, we'll move inmates through the sequential phasing process as they move down in classification and complete certain programs. Most of the programs are available at minimum security facilities at lower classification levels. And so they work their way there. So an inmate can refuse to transfer, but we can transfer them anyway. But the issue with that is then, do you want to transfer a management problem into a minimum security facility? You don't want to, because then you have more problems. So we try to convince the inmates, hey, you worked hard to get here. Why not take that next step?
Well, the reason why I asked you is because I know that when I had the opportunity to visit up in Arizona, there were a lot of inmates that I talked to. Because of what our facility is like here, a lot of them say, I really don't like come back. And I could say it to my family, but it's a facilities, just the neglect and the living conditions. Yeah. So I just trying to figure out it. And if that's the case, I'm sure what you would have to ask for from the legislature would be more money to build and places to build.
I think what we need to do, now you're right, because I had some of the same conversations when I was the administrator for HPA. I was a deputy director of corrections before. I had some of the same conversations. And to be honest with you, the recidivism rate for the inmates in Hawaii is about 3% more than on the mainland. And that's negligible, to be honest with you. But the facilities are better. They are better maintained. And so our facilities over time, unfortunately, when we ask for money to maintain a facility, we might ask for 25 million for CIP, we might get 10. So now we end up paying whack-a-mole with emergencies and maintenance problems. And so instead of having a planned out deferred maintenance plan where you do maintenance on time, now you're waiting for the next emergency to come up. So you put all your resources to that, come back to the legislature and ask for more money. So I would ask the legislature to understand that these are prisons and jails that operate 24/7, 65 days, 365 days a year. And that it's not an office building where it closes after 10 or 12 hours. And so As a result of that, there's a lot of wear and tear on the water and sewer, electrical infrastructure, and just the equipment, period. And so when the department comes in and asks for money for repair and maintenance, or comes to ask for money for deferred maintenance or construction projects, they're sorely needed, and they're years and years overdue.
So, I was curious of a cost comparison or an analysis that you folks, I don't know if you guys have done it, but I'm standing there in the facility in Arizona and I'm like, wow, you get some really big people that I don't think they physically fit. But the technology that you have there to operate that facility versus what you have here and the manpower needed, I mean, there's definitely a cost of more manpower and stuff. I'm not saying that, I don't want the jobs there, but I mean, it's so much more sophisticated and more workable. I mean, have you guys analyzed what that cost efficiency, newer facility, more repair and maintenance on an older facility? Like,
I don't know. I think the closest example I can give you is OCCC. Right now, OCCC has 435 corrections officers. Their budget alone last year overtime was, 7.3 million. Before that, it was 7 million, 7.4 million. I think the more efficiently you can lay out a facility, the more technology you bring to bear for security features, the more cost effective it will be to run that facility. Now, with Saguaro opened up in 1997. And so it's much newer than any facility we have here. And so it's more efficiently laid out. One of the problems we have here in Hawaii is you have to go with the lowest bidder. So in OCCC alone, we have 5 different camera systems. Every time we added camera systems in or tried to augment, we had to go with the lowest bidder. Same thing with the security panels and some of the control stations. So if we somehow can get away from that and pick the best qualified bidder for what we need, then maybe it certainly may cost more, but it may be more efficient in the long run and cost effective in the long run, because then you're getting correction grade equipment that you need that's going to last longer.
Like the bids, and can't you put the
Yeah.
specs in the bid?
We do put the specs in the bid, but we still have to go with the lowest
Yes,
bidder.
but you can't put in the higher specs. into the
We
bid.
do, and a lot of times, unfortunately, the person that gets the bid, there are change orders in the bid, and so
That's the thing, you gotta reject the bid based on the fact that, this, anyway, it can be done, because I used to represent in the technology, and that's what we would put in order, so you can get a continuation that it's gonna match up with what you already have.
yeah, I think part of the problem is, to be perfectly frank, we haven't held the consultants' feet to the fire when change orders come in, and these are things that they should have anticipated as part of their duties and responsibilities. So
and then I guess you kind of give the guys to just check the box and they cannot do them anyway.
Right.
And then come to the point that even if they're awarded or the bid, that they come to that point, it's like, oh, shoot, we can't really do it now, and then drop the
Well,
ball.
the change order is a killer, because if you look in Hawaii historically, the larger the project, the larger the percentage of change order. I'll give you an example. Look at the rail system. It's supposed to be 4.65 billion. It's up to 12.
We're gonna finish at 20 billion, but anyway, okay, I got one last question.
Okay.
So my last question is, do parolees have adequate support to help them avoid going back to prison? And if no, what do you think we need to do?
Well, that would be a question for the HPA. So I would defer to HPA Chair Hune, who's here.
Thank you.
Jim Hawai'i, Senate member. Yes, ma'am.
Uh,
Your question again?
do parolees have adequate support to help them avoid going back to prison? And if no, what do you think we need to do?
Well, I think there's a combination of factors that would contribute to recidivism or return to prison. Some of it is programming, or some of it is going back to the same hood with the same associates. So a lot of times, in every instance when an individual is released on parole, it's to a program or to an approved residence or halfway house. And if there's need for aftercare and follow-up, we do that too. Now, be advised that there are many parolees who are dual diagnosed and have mental health issues as well as substance abuse. And we try to get wraparound services from the mental health side while they're in the community. Because they can be given 1 month worth of medication, and after that, they don't take it, they start decompensating, and then they go back to self-medication with drugs, and that may contribute to new crimes or being revoked on parole and having them come back into the facilities.
Was there ever conversation in this case, Earl, instead of bringing them back to the same environment, working out something in Arizona, for them to be placed in some kind of work program, so they're not coming back to the same environment, which I know some want to, but if I just nailed you for one drug, put you up there, you come back home, can I get a job, hang with the same gang, you fall right back into the same situation. And like for many of us that have families,
Well, I think some of those
rather
that
did
you're
not that.
referring to are those who max out and didn't come through parole or transition properly. So we have approximately 1,500 on active parole supervision. So out of the thousands of inmates that we do see at parole hearing, now, especially out of Arizona, there's about 10-15% who don't want parole. They just want to max out and do their time. And those are the ones that are really difficult to deal with because they want to do it their way. Those who have gone through programming and work furlough and transitioned out, we see, I think, less than 50% of a return rate back to reincarceration.
No, but what I'm saying is how many of them that are up there, maybe did their time
In Arizona,
in Arizona,
Mhm.
they just term out. Has there ever been an opportunity to work with Arizona to place them in Arizona, the one work program? Or do they come back here?
maybe Director Johnson can respond to that.
Senator, no state will allow another state to release inmates in their jurisdiction
Okay.
or any type of furlough program. The law here states that if someone is released on parole or maxing out, we're required to bring them back to the county in which they held their residence or employment prior to incarceration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Favela.
Yeah, just on the topic about the reentry. When they leave now, and I know I talked to Director Tommy about this, are we giving them their documentation when they leave? Birth certificate, ID, or anything that they can actually try to get a job? And are you guys doing it now, or are you guys been doing it, or what is the timeline?
So the birth certificates, we were able to assist them in obtaining a copy of their birth certificate, even if they were not born in Hawaii. The ID card, we only have that machine up and running at Halava. We're still trying to work with the city and county to get it in other places. We just, we're entering into an MOU with the Social Security Administration to be able to assist American-born citizens in obtaining a replacement Social Security card. We will be able to assist them in that respect, but those who are legal aliens or born overseas or born on military bases overseas, we can only assist them with the application process. But according to the Social Security Administration, they will have to deal directly with that person, not with us, even though they may be in our custody.
Can you go back to the numbers of people that is out on industrial, or the numbers and amount that we are spending on the industrial?
Well, I can tell you this, we requested on our budget a little over $6 million to account for the workers' comp costs. Because that money is coming out of operating expenses.
Pretty much.
And so what happens is, and that's by law. So when you have someone who's out on workers' comp, we're backfilling that position with overtime. So that salary is gone plus 50%. We're scraping up the pay to fill that position. The money that the person is getting on workers' comp is coming out of operating. So from the facilities, it's coming out of their budget to maintain the facilities. So we came in this year and asked for money for workers' comp so that the facilities don't have to take it out of operating budget so they can maintain the facilities better.
So in 2023, how much you guys spend of your guys' operating budget on the industrial people?
I don't have it here, but as I recall, it was a little over $6 million.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is that, for whatever reason, that these guys are not coming back work, and I told you about the mystery chair, they're getting hurt on that chair. But how are we gonna, if that's how much people is out on industrial?
Let me go back 1 second. Okay, so for total, temporary disability 67, partial 17. We have 21 people on light duty. So we do have a return to work light duty program. We work with the employee and their physician to get them return to work. Unfortunately, some of them don't. And if you find a patient-friendly doctor, then he's going to keep them out as long as possible. And there's nothing we can do when they do that. But we've provided estimated functional capacities for them to see what the person's limitations are. Then we develop a return to work light duty program for that person so we don't violate those limitations.
And when you guys offer that and they deny it, what is the consequences?
We can then, after working with the physician, send the person for what's called an independent medical evaluation to a physician we contract with to find out what the real issue is with the person.
I know you probably don't have it there, but can you, one more give us all over here on the longest person that's been on industrial many times over?
There are actually two that's been on off and on for 10 and 12 years respectively.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if you can just give us the sub-org codes for table 17.
We don't have it.
Oh, you don't have sub?
No.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Senator Hashimoto?
Thank you, Director. I think when I take a look at your vacancy list, especially, for neighbor islands, I guess what is a little bit concerning for me is I think we've had this conversation with your predecessor, maybe two people before you, of some of the vacancies. I think I think what they elected at the time to do was kind of wait it out, right? And to see if the economy would go down to start recruiting more correctional officers. I think part of the challenge is you have to compete with police, right? And other places where people can work. I know you stated that you wanted to do more classes, especially on those specific islands, but I guess what else? Because I think when I take a look at the vacancies before pre-COVID and now it's almost still the same. It's probably a little bit more. I think it worries me a little bit because at the end of the day, it hurts morale. If you don't have enough people working, right, you have to be forced to do more overtime.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot more. We got to approach this a little bit more aggressively. So I'm just wondering, what else can we expect? 1 year from now, what more can we see in?
Well, I did provide,
as
I mentioned, I did provide the Director D here with an outline of some proposals. One would be the return of step movements, which helps with retirement, so it makes it more attractive. Two would be the sign-in bonuses, because we're so short that corrections officers, they would qualify for the shortest differential. The third thing would be longevity. And then the other thing is our recruitment efforts that we're doing to try to let people know that the Hawaii civil service employment is the best benefit package in the nation. I think what hurts us, to be honest with you, is the base pay for a corrections officer is fairly low compared to the cost of living. For instance, if you look at the average cost of a home on Maui, is probably $750,000 to $800,000. The average corrections officer coming out of school, I think, is $56,000 to $64,000 a year. You can't qualify for an apartment.
I get it. So are you pretty serious about the differentials then? Because we brought this up before. It's just I think Director at the time refused to issue the differentials.
Well,
and when can we expect to see the differentials coming? No, I'm glad. I'm glad. I know it's totally different.
Okay.
Honestly, I think I like the direction that you're going, but I think we got to see action at some point.
I gave all those things I passed those along to the Director D. Hurd, because she has to worry about other jurisdictions that would affect. For instance, our BU 1 in 10 employees are also employed by Department of Human Services, Department of Education, and Department of Health. So I provided those outlines to her, hoping that they become part of the larger discussion, because she is a state negotiator.
Okay, but we can expect that. So maybe next, within the next year, we can see some action.
If you don't, it's not from me lack of trying. That's for sure.
Great. No, I like to hear that. The other thing is I guess relating to, I represent an area at Maui. I represent the area that I represent. It encompasses Maui Correctional Center.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what do you feel? And I like your statement about the CIP where we have to upkeep, because I think that was the reason why we ended up with the riots. But do you believe that all the after action has been taken based on what had happened? And I think The reason why I ask is because I recently had some conversations with folks and they felt there was still some things outstanding from that riot that happened back in 2019, I believe. Do you feel everything's been addressed, especially on the CIP side, all the safety concerns? And are we able to put that to bed?
No, I don't think all the issues were addressed. I think we still have to, we did contract with a company to look at our security surveillance systems statewide at every facility. And Maui was one of the facilities where we needed to do some improvements. There is a request in the CIP budget for the fencing in Maui to take care of the back fencing. I think we also need to take a look at our staffing for Maui. And since you've probably been out to the facility, you see it's older. There's a bunch of hodgepodge buildings just pretty close together. And so it's not an ideal setting for a correctional facility, just as OCCC. But we're kind of compressed in this small area. So I think what we can do is try to augment that with more surveillance equipment so that we can see every nook and cranny in the facility. I think we do need to improve the staffing, but I also think we do need to look at moving from that location at some point because it's not ideal. The neighborhood is kind of sprung up around us and there's a cemetery right next door.
I totally agree with you. And I think that's in the long-term works, but do you believe for all the short-term stuff, all that is reflected in your budget requests?
The money for the fencing is
right.
in
I
the
saw
budget.
that. Right.
The money for the security cameras, we have some. We're going to expend all we have first before we come back and ask for money. I want to try to use what we have.
So within the next year to two, that should be settled then.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Chair.
So we will be coming in probably next year for additional money for the surveillance equipment, just so we're clear.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Senator Kidani.
Thank you. Director, I wanted to go back to the issue about helping the inmates get IDs. You said you helped the local, just the locals.
No. For ID cards, we help. Right now, we have one satellite machine at Lava Correctional Facility. So it doesn't matter if they were born here or not. We help them get a civil identification card. We hope to expand that to the Women's Community Correctional Center, MCCC, and HCCC, which will handle Kulani Correctional Facility, swing back and do the jail, and then do Waiawa last.
So all of the inmates who want to get IDs are able to get IDs.
Only if they're at Halava. Excuse me. Yeah, only if they're at Halava. Because that's the only place we have the satellite machine right now.
Okay, but how do you assist those others? If they get out without IDs and can't get work or whatever, you're putting them in a position where they almost have to.
Well, to be honest with you, Senator, we've been working with the city and county for the last, it's over 3 years. The problem we have with that is that the Department of Community Service, which is responsible, is on their third director. And every time a new director comes in,
Customer services.
Customer service, I'm sorry, this Department of Customer Service. So every time a new director comes in, we have to start the process all over again. And so we've started the process all over again with the third director. We're working with them, with their staff, to try to get them to make a decision on the new machines they're going to purchase, because the machines they purchase, we have to purchase the exact same machines because the machines have to talk to each other. So if you'd like to contact the city council, the mayor's office on our behalf, I would appreciate that.
I'd be happy to, but it's an issue that impacts all of us.
It does,
our community and our inmates. So I would like to have this discussion with you, and I'm sure that Senator Ukai would be happy to assist us.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So what's happening on the neighbor islands? So these machines are like what, $100,000?
No, the machines cost about $17,000.
Oh, okay.
It comes about $25,000 total to hook up all the electronics, get the telephone lines done. And then that machine talks to the county Department of Motor Vehicles. And they exchange information. We do the hard copy application. We send it electronically and provide the hard copy to them. The machine is to take the picture, provide certain information, electronic signature, so that if everything is okay on their end when they get the packet, they can take and issue the civil ID card. We then pick up the civil ID card. It becomes part of the inmate's property. So when they get out, they're handed the civil ID.
So what happens to the other facilities on the neighbor islands? Does DMV do all of that technology part, or do you need a separate machine for each of the neighbor islands?
We need a separate machine for each county. Otherwise, they can't get the ID card until they actually get out of prison or in resocialization, work furlough and out on a path.
And it's the same system, the same system.
Correct.
Each county has the same system.
Each county has the same system because Department of Transportation is actually the ones that pays for the systems.
Senator Elafante.
Thank you, Chair. Director, what's your current policy on in-person visitation to inmates?
Right now, we still have no contact visits at the facilities because we still have a problem with COVID.
While COVID is sort of ongoing,
Mhm.
is there any direction to reopen or re-examine in-person visits?
We can, once we update our pandemic response plan, which we have to do, to be honest with you, has been updated since I think September, October.
The reason why I say that is I know that, well, contraband still gets in, even with no contact that you have now.
Yes.
However, with in-person visits, being that you're a new department and rehabilitation, I do feel that's an important component for re-entering society for some of these inmates. So I want to just point that out. If at the appropriate time, you can revisit that.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you.
If no other questions, we'll take a recess so that we can hear from law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recess. Okay, so we're reconvening and we're gonna now hear the supplemental budget request from the Department of Law Enforcement. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Lowe. I am the Director for the Department of Law Enforcement. And I would like to thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members to give me this opportunity to advocate for the Department of Law Enforcement. We can go directly
Table 4.
to table 4.
Yeah, okay.
So if you notice on table 4, our first number 1, 2, 3 priority really relates to trying to reduce the pay disparity between our law enforcement officers and our county counterparts such as HPD, Maui PD, Kauai PD, and Big Island PD. This particular request is for $6.5 million. Approximately, unfortunately, due to the fires in Lahaina, the governor chose not to fund this initiative. We feel that this initiative is actually very crucial because in the long run, reducing the pay disparity will decide whether the Department of Law Enforcement will be successful or not. So that's the first thing. On priority number 4, the request for 50 FTE positions, 40 for the airport and 10 for harbor division is going to be U funded, and the governor will be doing a governor's message on that because we have an agreement with the Department of Transportation. What we're really trying to do there is to model the neighbor island airports like DKI. We're at this time, we're not seeking to replace the private security, but we're trying to supplement the private security in terms of having actual deputy there to do the law enforcement functions at the airport and the surrounding area. And that was a request from the neighbor island police departments.
They used to do that before, right?
They only did that for DKI. They were never at the neighbor islands.
So,
Right.
but it stopped at DKI.
No, they are still there.
They're still there?
Yes.
So the difference for the security that you're going to keep in place are that they don't do enforcement. So what is the difference between the two positions?
So right now, the Allied Universal Security, they would initially respond to an incident, but right after that, they hand it off to the county police department.
So in place of that, it would be the sheriffs or the DLE.
Sheriffs who will respond to the incident, do all of the follow-up investigation, and make the arrest if appropriate and transport.
In lieu of the police department.
In lieu of the police department. Because as we know, every police department is short staffed of officers right now.
So who's doing the security when you pull up your car to pick up passengers? Because I've been traveling quite a bit and there's nobody there on the car. So that's not you guys, that's
No, it's supposed to be Ally Universal.
Teaching everybody else on the new very speeding.
Oh, why wouldn't you want law enforcement? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Why wouldn't you want the law enforcement's in place of the private security? Because allied, whatever security, maybe they're doing the road or whatever. Why wouldn't you want a new division of law enforcement or the sheriffs doing the neighbor islands too?
So
Because what I'm saying is, okay, so you get airport security, they make the initial contact, then they give them to that guy, and that guy give them to that guy. Shouldn't we let all those guys go and just have one guy?
no, you're absolutely correct, Senator. When during my confirmation hearing, one of the things I advocated for was to have state law enforcement take over all of the positions. But in terms of practicality wise, there's 96 armed security positions by Ally Universal. It would take us almost 3 years to hire and fill those positions. So I felt that at an interim, we could at least, with a smaller number, provide law enforcement functions at the airports. And then after we're done with that transition, then we would move to replace the remaining private security. So it's
Just have a phasing in program or phasing in estimate that you guys gonna phase in 3 years, 4 years from when you guys start.
I hope to have that completed within 5 years. That is the plan, to try to have it in within 5 years.
Can you submit that plan to us?
Okay.
You want to continue?
Okay. So that was item number 4. Item number 5 really relates to item number 4, which again will probably come in as a governor's message. The only difference is the addition of a deputy director. I think that's probably going to be tied to a legislative bill.
Oh, okay.
Item number 6, we requested approximately $2 million for training and vehicles and equipment for new officers. We were given 1.5 million. The difference of 515,000 really is going to hamper us, because as we're trying to expand with these additional positions to fill at the airports and at harbors.
Yeah.
Item number 7 and 8 really relates to moving the armed or law enforcement sworn investigators in the Department of Law Enforcement into bargaining unit 14. And there's various reasons on why we're requesting that. The first one is we want to be consistent within the Department of Law Enforcement. It also gives us an opportunity for the sheriffs, the deputy sheriffs who want to promote up, to actually have a career path that they can look forward to, so they can gain the experience as a deputy, either working at a task force or being specially assigned to those divisions to meet the MQs, so then they can apply internally into those positions. Because right now, we've had situations where a deputy might apply for an investigator position. He accepts the position, then he realizes he's losing $1,000 a month, and then he has to return back to being a deputy. And we do not think that was equitable.
So all the officers now will be in BU 14. So it's everybody in.
Correct. If that legislative proposal passes, yes. Yes. But there is a cost involved, and that's the 878,000 roughly that's listed in table 4. we look down to, priority 12 relating to funds to continue the illegal fireworks task force. There's actually going to be a governor's message to raise the amount that's allocated for us so that we can continue. Because even based on procedures that we made this year, there's going to be unexpected disposal costs.
Yeah.
And if we are to continue to run the task force, there's going to be costs associated to that. That task force was very labor intensive. And, realistically, what we ended up doing was we were using personnel from different divisions to run that task force. For example, we were using agents from state narcotics, sheriff's division, because we didn't have a contraband task force. So. Item 13, I think, worked itself out in terms of this, the security guard contracts. The amount that we requested of 3.9 million is for a full year. So in FY 2025, it was reduced to 2.6 million, mainly because we were told that there was leftover COVID funds that paid for 4 months of it. So I think for FY 2025, 25 to 2.6 million is adequate, but the subsequent years, we're probably gonna have to come in at the 3.9 million to satisfy those contracts.
Sorry, what, for security for what? The contract you're talking about, security for what?
So there's two separate contracts. There's a contract to monitor all of the cameras in the Capital District. That's the first one, because that was contracted out to a private company. And then when we were discussing how to upgrade the security in the Capital Districts, when they put the cameras in, we noticed that every department had their own security contractor. So one could not help the other. So you could have somebody over at Department of Transportation on Punch Bowl, and then a separate company over at DOTAX, and they can't relieve each other because they work for different employers. So our recommendation to DAGS was to consolidate it into one company so they can offer relief to each other and to have a roving patrol for the parking lots. And that's what DAGS did. But DAGS came to us and requested that we take over the contracts because it fell more into our wheelhouse than DAGS.
So you have that contract now,
But we will have that contract, yes.
and how much is that contract?
Right now for FY 2025, it'll be 2.6 million. But subsequently after, it'll go up to 3.9.
So what about the
That's okay,
departments
the
that,
COVID funds.
the
For
COVID?
currently he's paying out of COVID.
COVID
That
funds,
BNF gave him.
yeah, but they're not gonna have that funds, and that doesn't include the Capital District. You're gonna include it all in one?
That includes the capital.
It does include, so
Yes.
it'll be one contract.
Yes.
But what about the other departments that are now paying for their own private security? So is that money's coming, general vouchering to you, or how is that being used?
So
The departments that are now paying for their own,
No, I don't
Why
think
they-
they've gone that far yet.
we haven't gone that far yet.
Because, I mean, at some point, people want law enforcement at schools too, so they're gonna have to, there's a lot of unwrap, I mean, kind of figuring this out.
Correct.
But the ones that have contracts now, they should be paying
Current ones.
into, yeah.
As they
Yeah.
they transition
Right,
them
to
to
the
the,
company.
yeah, to the
Correct,
department, yeah.
correct. Because I think that's the way that they.
so that would reduce this amount because you're gonna get whatever they're paying now, or how does that work?
Should be.
If the ones that currently have, and you're taking it over,
I think it depends, so like with
DOT.
DOT, it's you funded, right? So in some cases, if it's something totally new, then it's
They
gonna
have
be
to
asked
have-
for.
Right, but the current ones.
But yeah, the mechanics on this is we're gonna have to work out with DAGS, but these are the figures DAGS provided us.
But it would, everybody would be on it, so it's consistent monitoring and.
Yeah, but when we go to tags, at some point, there should be a reduction
On their side,
on their side.
correct.
Chair, just because Chair brought it up, and I just wanted to or, you know, how you would feel. I know you guys don't have enough officers to fill all the schools or even having one officer per school. Would you think would be good if you guys could look into the security attendance that is there, or the attendance that is there now, that is physically fit and can pass the test and go through the training, through law enforcement training, and become a law enforcement so that they can go back to the school? Because one of the problems is that they don't want you guys on campus because you guys are not trained to work with kids. But if you take one of the attendants from the schools and train them in your position, in your position, and not only giving them a chance to have a better pay, but a different lifestyle, would you guys be open to something like that?
So, you know, we are very concerned with the safety of our children. The first thing we're doing this year is we are going to provide DOE with a technology solution called Safer Alert. It's an alert system that you can use your computer, your cell phone, or a fob, and it would automatically locate where the distress comes from. So that's the first thing that we're doing. The second thing that we're doing is we're probably going to procure another solution called Fusus, which will access all of the cameras, excluding the ones in the classroom, of course, but access cameras so that everything will come into a real-time crime center. So with the real-time crime center, we will look at AI solutions that will identify individuals coming onto the property with a firearm or some deadly instrument. That's the first thing. The second thing is we thought about school resource officers. I think right now, initially, what we intend to do is to start having our deputies that have patrol sectors to start driving through the schools, the parking lots, just to show presence, to have presence as a deterrence. That's the first part. Your suggestion of putting attendance through our law enforcement academy, I have no problems with that. I think one of the problems we're running into in terms of recruitment is one way to solve it is we're talking about creating a separate class. For example, for the courthouses, for the cell block, we would create a judicial security officer or judicial security deputy positions where they can come in at an earlier age, and it would be a stepping stone for them. They come in, the requirements are a little bit less. They work 3 years for us, and then if they want to apply internally to be a full-fledged deputy or patrol officer, they can do that. And I think we can do that program with the schools too.
The reason why I bring this up is because when I had incidents in some of the schools in the district went higher, but the DOE had hired private security with clipboards, but they're used to handling adults and not children. And the community, not a lot of parents was involved with that and would like that. And then even if you're talking about these cameras that you're talking about, you're gonna have a lot of pushback when it comes to the parents and the kids being on camera on campus. If you're talking about after hours and having it centralized with all the vandalizing and the stealing and the destroying of state property, maybe that's all right. But during school hours, you're gonna try to alert them for a situation that's happening on campus. It's not gonna be a good fit. They're gonna bring this up as you guys are violating their kids' privacy.
Right, and we're going to be very sensitive to that, and that's why initially I think our plan was only exterior cameras. They're not going to be in the hallways. They're not going to be in the classrooms. You know, we respect that and we understand that, and we will, you know, we will work hand in hand with DOE to make sure that we have an appropriate solution for that. And in terms of potentials, I guess, school resource officers that aren't law enforcement, we would fashion the training to be a little bit different. Because if there is that issue on how to interact, with minors, that will be part of the training. As we're looking at different kind of trainings for for residentially challenged individuals. Yeah, so
Okay, so you've got,
Thank you, Chair.
you're at 14. The support office expense.
14. Correct. So what happened with the with the sheriff or PSD dissolving, there was the requirement for the sheriff's division to get CLIA. And because now they're folded into the Department of Law Enforcement, we re-enrolled to have CLIA certification for the whole department. And then that, not only would that include the sheriff's division, but also all of the investigative agencies that are attached, and the training division. And that will require a cost of 466,000, well, 467,000 approximately.
Okay,
What percentage of your officers, I guess you don't know yet, but are CALEA certified?
None of them are.
None. Wow.
that's why he needs the money.
None of them are.
Nothing. I
Yeah.
thought
So
they
you
were
have to- you
starting-
have to-
sheriffs were starting to do that.
No, so what happened was, they started a while back. There wasn't a whole lot of progress. Then we made a tremendous amount of progress, and we thought, we actually was gonna try to get certified last November. But we thought that that wouldn't be a prudent use of our funds because it can cost upwards to $30,000 for the assessments. For them to be certified for 1 month and then come over to us,
Mm,
we decided to wait and do the whole department. So
So do you folks go through the same training as the police?
very similar, yes.
Very similar, what does that mean?
Well, it's the same training. I don't particularly know exactly what everything that
Because if
HPD.
you ask for parity, then, you have to have parity in all the duties that you do, and if you have different duties, then that might not.
Well, the duties are the same,
Well, but not the intensity of it.
not the intensity, but generally the duties are the same.
So what is your thoughts about entire state? Because you have security officers at the University of Hawaii, you have security officers at different places. They're going through different kinds of training. We had an issue with the security officer training at the university at Honolulu Community College. They're making them go through tasers and batons and yet. Is that the intent for security officers to have that kind of training?
My personal thought down the line is, and granted, I have not consulted, with UH at all on this. But I think eventually all of the security, at the university is very similar to DOE, and that they should fall into the Department of Law Enforcement and be trained and sworn as law enforcement officers.
So you're saying that they should be carrying guns?
Not necessarily. I'm saying that there should be
No, but this is under the premise that you're creating different levels though.
different classes.
Yeah, because they're making like $20 an hour or $22 an hour, and you expect them to go through because they currently do put them to a training like they do the police officers, and that's crazy. They're knocking people down, they're learning how to secure people and restrain people, but that's not within their wheelhouse right now. This was called law enforcement officers. So for, $22 an hour, I mean, you guys, these security guys are just not enough people, and you're telling me that they should all fall under you guys?
Well, no, what I was suggesting is if that was the intent of UH, that DLE, would welcome trying to create a different class and provide them the training for that
Versus-
class, very similar to.
Versus UH doing the training.
Correct.
Yeah, what's going on is that they have a former police officer taking, I wouldn't like to know the age group of people that apply to be a security officer, to be observing, watch and observe and report. Now they're taking guys down and busting them with clubs and telling them that they gotta do arrests. I think that's law enforcement. Security is not law enforcement. Security is to observe and report. So that's what we like know is because we're getting complaints around the community about how they're now being told by a non-law enforcement supervisor who never have any security training, but she is the head of the department, telling them what they need to do. They need to be more like cops. You don't want gun, you get on taser. You know, with proper training, I use the taser, I taser you. You don't know if I use your club, I turn around and club you.
Yeah, and then they're put into a training and these people are not fit.
The pepper spray.
Oh, and pepper spray. They gotta get pepper sprayed and tasered. I know it sounds funny, but that's for real.
Yeah, it is for real.
No, I mean, I don't doubt you that may be happening.
Well, when we went to UH, they actually told us that that's what they do as part of their training. They spray pepper spray in their face. They hit them with the baton. I guess they get tasered.
I don't
And so
know.
we were surprised with that much abuse. And you're getting $20 an hour.
Yeah, well, and it's a liability issue because, so they had a training and people got hurt in the class because one, they're not fit. So all of a sudden they're doing a knee takedown, I forgot what they call it, a knee, when you go over the back and you kick them in the knee. And so people got hurt because they're not fit. They're not
Well, it's men, women at all different ages.
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm familiar with UH.
So we were surprised that for $20 an hour, you gotta go through that.
I mean, again, that's an issue and they cannot even find people to fill these positions.
But that's why.
That's wonderful. And you know what? I look at your positions. You got a whole bunch of positions you got to get filled. And so you're telling me that I should come under you guys?
Well, no, what I was.
The contracts, right? That's what you're saying, right?
No, so
Security.
the phasing of the contract is for the capital district.
Oh, okay.
We're not touching UH. UH has not approached us to touch
No,
UH.
but
But what I'm saying though is if there was a time in the future that it required us to provide the training and for us to absorb them, we would be willing to do that.
I guess my question is more because UH was just an example, because there are schools, DOE schools and stuff that requires security. And the issue is, if we're going to have security guards, which we should, it's a different level. We can't pay them like we do and put them to training like we do police officers or law enforcement officers. And to what extent would then you folks, or you being the state law enforcement arm, have any kind of input and say as to what these trainings should be like? Whereas right now, it's hit and miss. We don't know what they're training. We don't know.
Well, you don't have any say, though, right? Of how UH
Right now, I have no say on
Then
that.
maybe you should.
or DOE or until you guys go down the path with the MOAs and the MOUs or
Correct.
legislative.
Correct.
So could
solution.
you do a bill that said
Yeah.
a law that
Yeah.
said that you folks.
Yeah, I mean, that's our prerogative, I
Yeah,
guess. right?
that's
That's a policy call.
Yeah. And the other thing is, once we do establish, for example, the judicial security deputies or judicial security officers, that class, we can expand it, to UH, or we can expand it, to the DOE, as the senator said. That's something that we can do down the line.
Or
and
at
move
least
on.
a comprehensive training that is, everybody is on the same page.
Yeah, mass
So you
shooting,
not have
I mean,
different campuses
Correct.
doing different things. And it shouldn't be like a police officer. It should be a separate kind of training,
Right.
right?
It would be appropriate for the position.
Yeah,
For
because
the
they
position
have to go in
description.
front of court and what to say in the courtrooms. Going in front of the courtrooms very rarely.
Okay, number 15.
Number 15, but basically,
That's to fund the psychologists.
correct, because we need our own. We don't have one right now, and anytime we hire somebody, we do put them through, a psych evaluation.
Oh, yeah. Okay, 16 and
16 comes back to trying to resolve our vacancy problems. So one of the things we tried to do is while we're trying to reduce the salary disparity, we came up with different incentive plans. One of them is the recruitment and retention.
so you want to
So, for the newer deputies, if they stay 3 years, there's a payout annually. There's what we call physical fitness incentive. So every year, if you pass the physical agility exam, there'll be a small payout, but what we found is you will reduce the sick leave and workers' comp if the person is healthy. And then the final incentive would be education incentive.
Oh,
Would that
I
be the
see.
same for the correction officers as well?
No, that's different department now.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
know.
but I'm just saying again, are we gonna have, because if you start to give, bonuses or whatever it is you're gonna give, then they're gonna say, well, what about us? Right?
Yeah,
So-
he did talk about already meeting with Brenna on a bonus program.
incentives and
Yeah.
stuff
Right.
like that. So,
And we sent our proposal to Brenna also.
so there should be some consistencies with going on,
Yeah.
because what is good for one is gonna be
Direction's good to
wanted
use.
by others, and can we afford to do
Yeah,
it?
so when we have heard, we should ask her about all these different requests. Because that was what the previous director talked about. Was people in the same bargaining unit having different incentives.
Right,
And so she has to reconcile that before she can approve it. And so
Right.
they don't have control of the people in in the same bargaining unit, but in different departments. So Brenna has to go and make sure that she
Right.
can,
but if you want us to
Make it
approve it,
consistent.
then we're gonna, I'm not gonna say yes to you and then say yes to somebody else, right?
Oh, no,
So,
no.
Yeah, so the
that's-
impact of what that's gonna cost the state is not just what you folks gonna cost, but what the other departments might cost, because you started on it.
Oh, no, absolutely. We
But-
were just preparing different type of incentives to present to DHERD for them to either say yay or nay.
yeah, and this is not in the governor's budget. Yeah,
No,
yeah. This was just his
Yeah,
initial request.
down the
And I think some of it depends on what Brenna says before they can actually put it in. Or before the governor may consider it.
Can I ask a question on general question on vacancies?
Okay, wait, he's almost done. He only has a couple left.
The one more question, is that supposed to be a bonus or is that going to be added to the base salary?
no, it's
Just a bonus?
Okay,
The educational bonus is really if you, because we went to
Completion.
the best and brightest, if you declare that you're gonna get a bachelor's degree, we're gonna pay you X amount,
That would be permanent.
that, and then if we, same thing with a master's, no, it's a one-time payment. It's a
Yeah,
one-
but they
it's-
gotta commit to staying.
They
so
gotta
long.
commit, yeah, it's a one-time payment.
and then, okay, so it's just all the different law enforcement training, Office of Inspector General,
Correct,
Airport and Harbor, and the last one is Office of Homeland Security.
right, it's for all sworn law enforcement officers.
Okay, okay. Your question?
Yeah, so on your vacancies on table 11. You guys take these things seriously when you folks put it together? Because you have on page
27.
29 of
Oh,
82,
29.
all these deputy sheriffs, all these things, and you have that you're gonna fill all these positions,
Yeah.
expected fill date, January 2, 2024, and we're into January, past January 2. Have you filled all these positions?
No, I think those dates are for, it's when they came over to us from public safety. We've run, 2 academy last year, we're gonna have,
No, the question is on your vacancy report. You're saying the vacancy date, you give us the vacancy date, and the next line says expected fill date. So did you guys go down there to say you're gonna fill the deputy sheriff 2 by January 2, 2004? Sheriff deputy 3 by January 1, 2002 by 2024. Every single one on this page is January 1 to 2024. Top clerk, everything. all.
that is incorrect.
So why do you guys send us stuff that's incorrect? Are you taking this seriously?
We absolutely.
Because you're not the only ones that do this. I'm just tired of asking the same question of all the departments, because you guys give us bogus dates for fill. How does that help you guys or help us?
It doesn't. It doesn't help us. And in the future, we would do better on that.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to ask this again next year.
Or if you want to, you can go ahead and update table 11 and then send it to the committee. Any other questions?
I have one. On table 15, your CIP request, you said the receiving desk warrant section for Sheriff Division requested DAGs to allow you to use Kalani Moku and they wouldn't. What is the reason? What is the receiving desk and warrant section? Is that dangerous and that's why they felt it was a public security risks,
So
public safety
if
risks?
if I can give you a brief history on that. So when I was the deputy director for law enforcement and PSD, so that would be 3 years ago, they advised that they were in the planning stages. And they actually had blueprints drawn out for it to go to Kalani Moku. And then a couple of years later, they said, oh, we're gonna be delayed 18 months or so. We're gonna be delayed, and they had a different set of plans. So we had to extend our lease on Kiabi Street. So then they came back a few months later and said, oh, you extended your lease, so we're gonna cancel the project. But the problem is the location at Kiabi Street, number one, was supposed to be temporary. That's the first thing. It's not appropriate for 24-hour holds. Was never made to have 24-hour holds. And we're at a point where we need 24-hour holds, especially when we get extraditions from the airport. So for whatever reason, it was canceled. So they're saying that they can no longer put it at Kalani Moku. So that's why we were looking for a new location, which we think we found at the enterprise lot at the airport, although it would be at a substantially more rent. So what's happening is there's $6 million that was allocated for the Kalani Moku project, and it's set to expire June 30th, 2024, so in 6 months. So I think what we're gonna do with that is we're gonna request that $6 million be repurposed, or so that it could be extended for 2 years, and we would change the TMT for that location.
So right now it's 16 million in CIP funds though. Or
Correct.
is-
So we're reducing that.
So you're,
We're gonna try to start off with the 6 million, see how far we get. And
and that's for rent, at this point, rent? Or
that's just for the building. There's the plan and design.
Yeah, rent would
Okay.
have to be on.
Yeah,
Okay.
that will be operating.
So this is, you're actually gonna use it for design?
Correct.
But
And
you don't-
you have the building,
And construction.
No, do you have location?
We have a location.
no building on it, just look,
No, there's a building on it right now. It's the enterprise building.
and it's,
Enterprise.
and so that's 16 million for
Oh,
design.
there- What is this airport?
It's by the airport.
And that's 16 million for design, just design and construction?
No,
or design?
that's for build and design. I mean, design and build.
And then the joint training center, you have a place for that? That's the 8 million.
We do not, and we reduce that amount to 3 million. Because what I don't want to happen is that if we keep kicking the can down the road, we'll never get it done. So we're requesting a smaller amount just so that we can plan, design, and try to locate a facility or land that we can build.
So that 3 million is looking for, like planning it, looking for a place.
Correct. And one of the places that was identified was by Halava. Because they I think the governor's office felt that if they're gonna put OCCC there, why not put the training center right next door? And what we would do is we would design the training center not only to house the law enforcement training center, but also for TCR. Because it would be very, very similar.
Mm.
So what I don't understand is that we don't have a training center. We don't have a lot of these things. But then the governor never like support a law enforcement district in what is that called? Ilalani Tech Park. So you're piecemealing all of these things, and you guys gonna be spending $16 million here, $15 million here, instead of concentrate everything in one area that was proposed but never was went to provision because I guess the governor or somebody didn't like the idea. But you heard about them. I'm pretty sure you guys all heard about them. But why wouldn't you guys try to concentrate and tell the governor to rethink and appropriate some money to do that? Because if we really thinking about safety for Hawaii, yeah, and having all the agencies there so that we can train, it was really a no-brainer for that. Because we get the FBI center there, we get the training here, we get the prison training there, we get the police training by Powell. Everybody's all over the place. There's a connectivity. Because you guys talk about climate, not you, sorry. The governor talk about climate change, sea level rising. All of these places where get all of these stuff now, it's in that flood zone. It's in that area. To me, YPO would have been an ideal park because Mililani Tech Park would have been an ideal spot because it's way in there. Nobody's around there, surrounded by mountain, very secure. Would have been very easily to build a facility for trainings for all law enforcement in one location. So when Senator Kim asks you, are you having the same training as HPD? You don't know how similar it is because you don't know what they're training. But if we had a facility like that, everybody would know and be on the same page. Prison, you guys, sheriffs, HPD, and FBI and whoever else acronyms is around. So maybe when you see the governor try whisper in his ear and let him know how it's important to keep our people safe in
I think
Hawaii.
they tried.
Oh, they did try. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I think they've tried multiple.
Sorry, we should get acquired and sorry, but.
Yeah.
So first of all, the receive.
I think he's begged.
The receiving desk is totally different from the training center. The receiving desk in a special ops center is there to house detainees or arrestees. So that has to be in town. That it's not practical to put that.
No, but the
put that-
headquarters and some of the other things, because even that is still in the flood zone,
Correct.
the enterprise.
That's the first thing. In terms of the training center, or actually, I misspoke. The training curriculum, the only reason why I say it was generally the same as HPD and not exactly is because I have not seen HPD's curriculum. So I would have misspoke if I said it was the same. But I know they teach this, they teach HRS, constitutional laws, search and seizure, use of force, use of firearms, self-defense. They get tased, they get hit with a baton, they get pepper spray. So it practically is the same, but I can't say for sure without looking at comparing the curriculum. It would, it wouldn't be right for me to say that without, like I said, looking at the exact curriculum that HPD has and comparing that to the sheriff. Okay.
And our police academy is a top 10 in the nation for training. Police department. Always every so many years they do a 10. We're one of the top 10 in the nation.
Yeah. So we just have to find somewhere else not in my district, it sounds like. For the responsible tech part. But it's all in the flood zone.
So with all that being said, though,
Yes.
I think the governor's priorities might have been different if the Lahaina fires didn't happen. I think that affected our budget requests tremendously.
Well, some of the things were vetoed before the fire, though. So you cannot.
But we can go back and ask, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened to the 200 million you had for? Sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're gonna adjourn and then we're gonna call to order soon thereafter for Department of Defense.
Defense.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, calling to order public safety. So now we're going to hear from Department of Defense on their supplemental budget requests. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Dela Cruz, Chair Wakai, Vice Chair Morawaki, and Elefante and committee members. I'm Major General Kenneth Howard, the Adjutant General for the State of Hawaii Department of Defense. First of all, Happy New Year to all of you. Again, the following briefing is for fiscal year 25. I did want to highlight before I jump into the table 4 is one major change since previous years is the state's Office of Homeland Security. Used to be part of the department, is now part of the Department of Law Enforcement. And then the other thing I also want to highlight is we are a very small department. To include, it's about 500 total employees, and the budget is relatively small, but you folks all know the mission is extremely important, and we do bring in significant amount of federal funding. The governor budget did approve 39.8 million in state funding for fiscal year 25, which will bring in about $94 million in federal funding. So I'll switch over to table 4 now. When I put it out to the departments, our priority first and foremost was for life and safety. And then the other priority is just to be able to do our operations and sustainment. You're going to see our budget requests were for some salary adjustments, and that's one, to be able to recruit and retain quality individuals. And like every other department, we have challenges getting our vacancies filled. I should talk about that real quickly. We do have a total of 519 authorized positions. And of that, 185 vacancies. But if you walk down, 24 positions are awaiting state matching funds. So I'm not funded to fill those positions. 47 are filled by hourly wages because we don't have adequate budget, especially within the U Challenge Academy. And then 109 have pending hiring action. So of that, all of the vacancies have an action with it, with the exception of just 2. So, well, from my perspective, I think we're on path to fill those vacancies. So switching now to table 4, the first one, I'll go down the list. It's not in priority order, but we did ask for our state rate employees for salary increases that to meet the Hawaii revised statutes requirements. Moving down, we asked for a transfer of an engineer 4 position from Haima to Hawaii engineering office. And that's again, we couldn't fill it within Haima and feel by repurposing it to our engineering office would be better for the department. Going down, salary adjustment for the OVS director. Further down, priority 2 was utilities for our star-based program. We did ask for a building maintenance supervisor that the governor is supporting. And then for the Air National Guard, also the state military rate employees salary increase. What we did not get fully, which is going to be challenging for us, and we're going to ask the governor to reconsider during his governor's message, is the utility cost for both the Hawaii Army and Air National Guard. The Hawaii Army National Guard, we needed about $500,000, but we were funded only for $100,000. So we need to fill that delta. And then the other big challenge is when we put in our request for utilities for the Air National Guard, we thought we only needed about $100,000 because we are building out a microgrid on Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, and that was supposed to be in operation on 1 January of this year, but because of issues getting that thing fully operational, and we need a power quality meter installed by Hawaiian Electric, which is really the function of the naval facilities. So that's setting us back, and we don't think we're going to get that in this state fiscal year. So actually my delta now is going to be $1.4 million of the utility. So we'll work with the budget and finance and governor's office and hopefully get that into his governor's message. Next item, state morning point and siren program salary increase. We are asking for additional 20 positions for recovery operations for the Maui wildfires. And then funding for federal matches for the hazard mitigation grant. And then also additional Haima administrator salary adjustments. So those are the big ticket asks for Department of Defense. Subject to questions, I have my entire staff here, so
I'm going to
go back to you, Chair.
I'm going to introduce them.
Oh, yeah, sure. I don't know who I have, so I gotta look it up. So with me, you guys know, Brigadier General Steve Logan is my Deputy Adjutant General. For the Hawaii Army National Guard is the Chief of Staff, Colonel Tyson Tahara. Air National Guard is the Director of Staff, Colonel Daniel Raisin. For the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, Barros is out of country right now, so representing him is Don Avial. Youth Challenge Academy, Acting Director, retired Brigadier General Bruce Oliveira. My Military Support Officer, Brigadier General retired, Neil Mitsuyoshi. And then my ASO, Colonel retired Rusty Spray, and then Chief Engineering Officer, Major Shao Lee. That's the staff here.
Members, any questions? Senator Infante.
Thank you. What's the total for your siren program? And then are you looking at doing, I know Administrator Barros is not here. Are you looking at more sirens and increasing capacity for that?
Okay. I know for this year, we didn't ask for any additional, we kind of get the recurring budget, but you gonna let Don, either you or.
Yeah, we're
Go back to the mic.
yes, our siren team, Don Avial, was the name, Axel. Good to see you folks. We're working on our siren program and trying to make assessments and see if we're gonna go with the federal program as well, federal funding as well as tying with some of the state funding. So that's what we're looking at currently for the sirens.
Provide the base, how many we do maintenance on and what the new build outs.
Yeah, currently, shoot, I don't have the number right away.
You can get back to us.
Yeah, I'll get back to you folks. Is that all right, sir?
Yeah, we'll get back to you guys.
We'll send it in.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Senator Fabel.
Just a quick on, you just said the Maui fire recovery, is that previously or right now? The one that you was just talking about for the Maui recovery?
Yeah, so kind of just to walk through, we went through the response, right? For Lahaina and the
Is it to
upper.
cover old expenses or?
No, this is
New
new positions, new expenses to cover. Now we're shifting into the recovery phase. So these guys are going to be multiple years. We've got several projects from other disasters. So they help to do the project worksheets and get in federal funding and do all of the accounting.
That's good to know, because when we went up there, they never said nothing about you guys. You never get no billing, bro.
Senator Hashimoto.
So I see in your CIP budget, you're asking for 5 million for sirens, but I assume that's the base amount because you asked for 5 million before.
Yeah,
I would assume most of it,
additional.
so I assume most of it is, well, I think you got to figure out because part of it might be just regular R&M and that cannot be CIP'd, right? Because I think you might just be regular fixes and
Right,
so.
some are repairs, some
Yeah.
are general maintenance,
Yeah.
and some are new.
Yeah, okay. So I think that'd be good to know just what the scope is, because obviously we're gonna have to invest in that part, probably the CIP part more than anything.
So HAIMA tracks each and every siren, so we know maintenance status. Some of them are non-repairable. But it's so hard to go through the process to be able to, one, get the funding and get the clearance and the right of entry and approvals to build a new.
Because I think what might happen is people are probably going to want more sirens, and that's
Now
a
they do,
problem
yeah.
too, right? And it wasn't an issue
Right.
before; it's a new phenomenon.
And the past, the priority was in the inundation zones by the
Right.
shores, like focusing
Right.
on tsunami, but now we want it to be in all
Yeah.
hazards.
So be good to understand what that number is, and
Yep.
look forward to that. Thank you.
General Hara, looking at your telework policy, and we had your two kind of sister agencies in front of you, and they had no telework employees, but you have a whole bunch of them. What's your policy on telework?
So we follow to the T, the DHERTS policy. I can pull it, I think I have.
What do you mean by that? Because previous department said they thought it was too broad. Both BNF and another department said they just thought it was, which one?
DBID.
Oh, DBED. Yeah, they thought it was broad.
What I task my people to do is the first thing is if we allow the telework, it needs to be justified. They did a survey to ensure that whatever they're using as an office or workspace meets the requirements to be able to do their job and it is safe. And then that frontline supervisor, all the way up through the deputy adjutant general, will ensure that, one, we don't lose production. So we're tracking to make sure all reports or whatever functions that they do are met. And Steve Logan is the approver for all of my telework. And of that, I think I had 15 on the list. 3 are for reasonable accommodation. So we'd have to support that as well, regardless. If you look at the bulk of the positions, Senator Wakai, Chair Wakai, is for OVS. And what we found in the past 2 years is we actually learned this during COVID, is some are from work and access, they're able to increase their support to the veterans. I think it was about 30% is what Ron Hahn briefed last year. So it's actually better for us having them telework. So
mainly
most
is
of
that,
them are like 2 days telework per week, is not 100% telework.
so mainly Office of Veteran Services.
Yes, I think 95%. Yeah, correct.
Are you finding that they do work after hours and maybe do some counseling on weekends, which your typical government employee doesn't do?
Right. There's service oriented, right? So supporting the veterans.
Okay, got it.
And then on table 23, I noticed column L was not filled out.
Is that the work related?
That travel.
I don't know. I don't even have the columns labeled. What was the top? What was the subject
No,
line?
the cost paid by state or another entity. So we're not sure if that was a federally paid conference or
Oh, I
a
see.
grant
Okay.
or
We can.
if
update
we
that.
paid or. Because you have the amount in there. You just don't know. You just don't have us.
Like I said, these are all state travel.
Okay.
Sure.
Sense of
You
development.
know, on the all the checkpoints in line, are you guys still manning?
No,
Or
we
are you guys
turned,
gonna have an RFP coming out?
so our department turned that over. So that's contracted now to a local company in Maui. So
Okay,
they
so you
provide
guys, when did the contract go out?
We just handed it over. I think they started about 28th December, just recently.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, thank you.
Okay. Marlon.
Anyway, I'm hoping if we can talk to Garrett, that's the link, that might be a function. So I don't want to find any of that, like, it's ordered, yeah, that's what you. So you're making like 45.